Fáilte, Uicha Hamna, darklings. I hope your pumpkins are carved and your cauldrons are stirred, because the spooky season is upon us. And ghouls, do I have a freak show for you. With the Halloween season upon us, my fellow creatures of the night, on this channel we plan to celebrate. So join me, darklings, as we creep on into our first ever Spooktober. If you are a fan of Halloween and enjoy dressing up, then you are probably familiar with those pop-up Halloween stores that take over abandoned shopping malls or spots in strip malls for a few weeks each year, only to disappear again until next year. I live in a small town, and I am sure we could have gone to the local Walmart. However, my two friends and I wanted to try the new pop-up Halloween store, Mr. Funtime's Halloween Extravaganza. Everyone had been chatting about the new place in town, and there were signs hung up all over the place. Come one, come all, to Mr. Funtime's Halloween Extravaganza. It was one of those places that took a spot at the end of the town in a long-abandoned mall that closed the following summer. Rumour was the city was going to tear it down and build a new parking lot for nearby businesses. That hadn't happened yet, but what was temporarily in its place was the most amazing Halloween store I had ever been to. The place was huge and fit with a mini carnival outside, with clowns that had makeup done so well you could swear it was real. They smiled and waved as we walked in front of the store, and they were everywhere. They were made to look exactly like Mr. Funtime, the store's mascot, who was all green with black hair and fangs that when he grinned had little words written on them that said, Halloween. It was weird, but for whatever reason it seemed to work. People all over town flocked to the new store in droves. They sold food like hot dogs, nachos and cheese. And when you entered the store it was dark, except for black lights all over and more of those green clowns that offered their assistance to help you find just the right costume. I was looking around the store when my best friend Joe gravitated directly towards these weird masks that were painted all white. On his way over, he knocked over a stand with glass makeup paints, and they spilled all over. All the clowns in the store stopped what they were doing and looked at Joe. Joe smirked and rolled his eyes, not even attempting to pick it up. Dude, aren't you going to tell someone you did that? I bent down trying to pick up the broken glass, and finally a woman with pink hair and dead eyes came over with a mop. Oh, I'm really sorry. She said nothing to me, just began to clean up the mess as though she were a zombie. I looked around the store and all the green clowns were now back to trying to assist the many customers that had lined the store. There was carnival music playing over the loudspeakers, and I tried to concentrate, but it seemed like it was getting louder by the second. Whoa, these are weird, Joe said, picking up the white mask with no holes for breathing, or eye holes cut out to see. It looked like one of those masks you would hang on the wall for decoration but wouldn't wear. Those are boring. Don't tell me you're gonna buy one of those, I said, wiping the white makeup off onto my jeans that seemed to stick to my fingers like slime. What was this stuff made out of? I don't know. I just like masks. Joe looked at the mask with the look of a guy that was in love. I didn't understand it. But then my other friend, Eric, looked over towards these giant snakes and decided he just had to have one. I rolled my eyes and ignored them while I walked around the store alone. I was eyeing a pair of giant glasses that I thought looked kind of funny when someone tapped me on the shoulder. "Break it? You pay for it," said the voice. I turned around and looked up at the face greeting me. It was one of those giant green painted clowns. I'm just looking." "Well, is there something I can help you find?" He grinned wide, and I noticed there was something almost unnatural about his mouth. I saw it had traces of blood dripping from it. I shrugged it off because it was Halloween after all, and I didn't want to seem scared. I'm okay for now. I just thought these giant glasses looked kind of funny." The clown looked at me and stopped, grinning. I stared at him for a long time as I watched the unblinking look in his big black eyes. Then he smiled wide again, those pointed fangs jetting out like razors, and walked away from me and went to speak to someone else. I watched him unfazed as he walked up to a woman that was standing with a small child, and I saw her look at him and act completely normal, as though he were just an average person in a costume. I couldn't shake the feeling that these actors all were really into their jobs, and I guess it made it okay since they were getting into the spirit of the whole season. I heard Joe then scream my name. "Reggie, come here, quick!" I walked over to where he was standing and looked at him. He was holding that damn stupid mask on his face. "Dude, seriously? Get something scary. It won't come off." I looked at him and smirked. "What do you mean it won't come off?" I looked over at Eric, who was now standing next to me with a package of fake mustaches. I looked down at the bag and rolled my eyes. "What's going on?" Eric asked, looking at his bow. "It won't come off, guys!" "This isn't funny, man. Come on, I'm ready to go." I looked at them both and began to walk away. "No! Please! Help!" Eric yelled as he was now making a scene. Parents and other customers were looking at him like he was some crazy teenager on drugs. "Can I be of some assistance?" said one of the green clowns that were now standing in front of me. "It won't come off!" Eric yelled again. This time I could hear the tears in his voice. I was suddenly very concerned, and the clown just looked down and grinned at Eric. "Come with me. I think I may be able to assist you." Joe was still freaking out. "I can't breathe!" His voice was now growing muffled, and the clown grabbed him by the arm and pulled him towards the back of the store. I followed behind with Eric behind me. "Where do you think you're going?" "We were going with you to help our friend." "Oh, don't worry. We'll take good care of him." He pointed to a sign that read, "All customers are important to us here at Mr. Fun Times." He took Joe with him and shut the door behind. I heard it lock, and when I ran to open it, it wouldn't budge. "What the hell?" Eric asked. "I guess we just wait?" We waited for what seemed like hours, but had only been about 30 minutes. We stood there as we watched all the customers in the store shopping and check out. The zombie girl with the dead eyes and pink hair was ringing stuff up, but she was doing it in such a cathartic state that it was apparent to me something was wrong. I looked around the entire store, and I saw clowns walking people towards other doors, like the ones we were standing by currently. I looked around, and finally the door opened and Joe came out looking as dead as the girl with the pink hair. Eric and I were both relieved, but there was something wrong in his eyes. He looked like he was stoned or something. "Hey, man, you okay?" asked Eric. "Let's go," he mumbled. Eric and I didn't waste any time getting out of that store, because there was something off about the entire place. When I got home, I was in the mood to watch television and forget about the events of the afternoon. The next day, I was at school sitting at the lunch table with Eric and Joe, and as Eric and I talked about sports, which was the usual thing for us, Joe stared blankly at the table. As soon as the bell rang for our 1 o'clock period, he stood up mechanically and walked out of the cafeteria. Eric and I looked at each other. What was wrong with him? He walked down the hallway and out the front door of the school. "Joe, where are you going?" He didn't answer, just kept walking. Eric tried to stop him, but he just ignored us and kept going. We followed him all the way back to Mr. Funtime's Halloween extravaganza. There was no way we were going back to this place. It creeped me out. "Stop!" "If you break it, you pay for it," said Joe, and he walked into the store, shutting the door behind him. I walked inside, but Joe was nowhere to be found. I looked around and there was still customers and the green clowns. Eric and I looked at each other and ran through the store trying to find Joe. "Joe!" I yelled, but I couldn't seem to find him. I saw the same girl at the counter with the pink hair. She just kept ringing items up with no expression on her face. "Joe!" Eric called out, and then one of the clowns stopped us. "Hey there, better stop running through the store before you break something, or worse, you get hurt." "Where is Joe? My friend from yesterday?" The clown just stared blankly at us, and I rushed past him as I saw Joe go through the same door from yesterday. The door shut behind him, and I once again found myself unable to open it. Let's go get help," Eric said, and so we left out of the store. The two of us ran to find someone who could help us out. We went to the local police station, and when we got there, Eric and I ran straight up to the counter where there was an officer. "Please, you have to help us. Something happened to our friend." The officer looked concerned and allowed us to explain our story. He seemed doubtful and then told us to leave. "There's no such place as Mr. Funtime's Halloween extravaganza. I think you boys need to go home. Stop trying to play pranks on the police before you get yourself in real trouble." Eric and I looked at each other defeated. We walked out of the station, and then we both decided to go back ourselves to see if we could try again to help Joe. Before we did, however, we stopped at his parents' house to see if he had come back. "I'm sorry, boys. I think you're at the wrong house," said Joe's mum as she shut the door. Eric and I were becoming panicked now and were unsure of what to do. It was like Joe never existed. The store never existed, and our story was growing colder by the second. We decided to go back to the store, but when we got back, there was no sign or trace that the once fun-filled extravaganza ever existed. We walked around the building and looked for a sign, any sign at all. We looked at the doors that were now boarded up with wood. The building that used to be our local mall looked exactly like it did before the pop-up shop moved in. We never saw Joe again after that. But I keep an eye out for Mr. Funtime's Halloween extravaganza in case it pops up somewhere else. Eric and I have each other, and we know what happened. The only thing that still bothers me is why didn't his mum even recall Joe's existence? That was last year, and just the other day I had a ray of hope. I noticed the girl with the pink hair sitting on the sidewalk not far from where the store had been. She was smoking a cigarette, and she still had that same dead-eyed look on her face. I approached her and asked her about Joe.
"Sorry, I don't know what you're talking about because I never worked in any Halloween store. I think you must have the wrong person.
No, I'm sure of it. I stopped mid-sentence as I could see a tattoo on her forearm of a green clown with large black eyes. The clown's mouth was wide open and there was a tattoo of Joe as he was being swallowed whole by a big green clown with razor-sharp teeth. I grabbed her arm to get a better look.
Hey! You break it, you pay for it.
Thanks for joining me for tonight's tale, Darklings. I am GoblinPrincessKyo, and if you enjoyed our encounter, then subscribe for more accounts and tales from the darker side of life. Ah, the broom fell. Company is coming. Sweet dreams. Meet you back at midnight.